leadership. And we're going to be dealing with that in this particular conference in detail. Matter of fact, there's so much to talk about in the area of leadership, it would take about 2 months for me just to get started. So what I'm going to do is provoke you to the point where you will pursue your own studies to discover the potential for leadership in your own life. I want to begin with a couple of statements, and you can take notes tonight. It's very important for you to take notes for your own life. Remember, whenever you study, you're not studying for yourself, but also for your grandchildren. Because whatever you know, you will pass on to your children's children. And if you don't know anything, that is what they will learn. Also remember that all you know is what you have learned, and all you have learned is not all there is to know. So no matter what you've learned, there's something you still don't know. I am also convinced that we know less of what there is to know than we know of what we should know. In essence, our ignorance is much bigger than our knowledge. There are more books in your home that you haven't read, more tapes you've bought you never listened to. Hello? And what's amazing is you don't know what's in a book until you read it. So buying a book doesn't make you smart. Reading it does. Buying a videotape doesn't make you smart. Listening and watching it does. And so knowledge is something that you don't get by osmosis. You don't get by wishful thinking. Putting a book under your pillow doesn't make you comprehend the information. You've got to seek knowledge, pursue knowledge, and you must dig for wisdom and pursue understanding as one digs for treasure. I also want to make note of a comment that was made over 6,000 years ago by a very wise man. He was stating what he felt was the sentiment of the Creator's heart for all humanity. And it went like this: my people perish because of a lack of knowledge. And because you have rejected knowledge, I must also reject you. It goes on to say that you cannot be a representative for me, and I will also reject your children. The implication of that statement is, first of all, 90% of what you are facing that you call a problem is a direct result of your ignorance concerning that area. Most of what we call devil influence or demonic problems are basically not related to the devil at all. Most of our problems are because we are ignorant concerning that specific area of life. And so God, the Creator, states a definition of our problem. He says, my people perish or are destroyed or are having difficulty because of a lack of knowledge. So if a lack of knowledge causes you to perish or to be experiencing destruction in your life, then what should be the solution? Knowledge. I used to think then that if you get knowledge, you would also gain power to overcome your problems. That is true. But I've also learned something else recently, and that is not only is knowledge important, but correct knowledge is important. A lot of people know stuff that's not true. And most of what we learn ain't so. It's more dangerous to have knowledge that's wrong than to have no knowledge at all. Because what you have, you believe is true, even if it's wrong. That's why I believe one of the most dangerous things we are suffering from today is called zealous error. Please write that term down. Zealous error. When people misunderstand something, but they believe they understood, then the misunderstanding is understanding to the one who misunderstood. You'll get that tomorrow. In other words, if you receive information that you believe was right, but in fact it was wrong, but you believe it to be true, then you will live your life based on what you learn, even though what you learn may not be correct. And much of what we are living on is erroneous information that came from sources that did not know the right knowledge. Matter of fact, most of us are living on second-hand information from sources that did not know the truth. And the Bible never says that knowledge shall set you free. I repeat this. We are being taught by some psychologists and psychiatrists and philosophers and even some of our great civic leaders that if you get knowledge, young man, you have power. Or if you get knowledge, you have freedom. That is not true. According to the unadulterated, eternal, everlasting, well-tested, time-tested document handed down to us over the years, it states this in the 8th chapter of John: you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. It didn't say you shall know knowledge, because not all knowledge is truth. But it says you shall know what? The truth, and the truth shall set you free. The only thing that can set you free is the truth. So tonight, in this session, we are going to deal with going back to the truth, because much of our lives are really in bondage. When we think of leadership, we have all kinds of perceptions and concepts of what leadership is all about. The world is filled with followers, supervisors, and managers, but very few leaders. Matter of fact, leadership is like beauty. It's hard to define, but you know it when you see it. And there are less leaders in the world today than there was 20 years ago. Leadership is so rare today that what we call leadership, if we hold it up against true leadership, we would be shocked at how far it falls from what leadership is really supposed to be. Time itself has produced a legacy of distinguished and outstanding individuals in the past who have impacted history and their generation in such a way that we cannot ignore them. Individuals, both men and women, rich and poor, learned and unlearned, trained and untrained individuals who changed their generation, impacted their nation and their community, and history records their lives in a way that we cannot forget. These individuals came from every race and color and creed, background, culture, and language. These individuals, many of them, had no ambition to be great. They had no desire to be leaders. As a matter of fact, true leaders really never wanted to be leaders. What makes a person a leader? What transforms a normal individual, an average person, into that distinguished, impossible to ignore person? What turns a follower into a leader? Well, it seems to me that many of these individuals who had no ambition to be great were individuals who simply became victims of circumstances that demanded the hidden potential buried deep inside. In other words, leaders seem to be people with hidden qualities of character that was revealed under pressure. Leaders are ordinary people who accept or are placed under extraordinary situations and circumstances that bring out the best and the latent potential, producing the evidence of a character that cannot be denied. Our world today is desperate for these kinds of individuals. There are so few leaders today in the world that we believe managers are leaders. In the past 2 decades, which is relatively a short time for us, the world has experienced many remarkable changes in the realm of science, technology, medicine, space, travel, and hundreds of other so-called advancements in our nation. Strangely, this century alone has been so distressing. Things that have happened around us, even in our own short generation, are so devastating. We've had more wars today than there was before World War II. Monstrous new weapons have been developed and dismantled, and now in the hands of people who we are afraid of. Countless natural disasters and fatal diseases have come upon us that frighten our very existence every morning. We must agree that our generation lives in a swirling tide of events that demands and promises and threats and changing ideas that make us shudder in our boots. The leaders of our time are even worse than the devastations that face us. People in leadership positions are bewildered when you ask them to give an answer and explain the reason why our world is in such a mess. Many in positions of public trust, political positions, and civic leadership seem to be in a state of disillusionment. They confess that they don't have any answers to our problems. We need competent leaders today. We need leaders who have boldness, insight, wisdom, and most of all, passion for the truth. In this bleak environment that we live in, you and I exist, is the painful reality that over the past few decades, there seemed to be a dramatic leadership vacuum. This vacuum is so devastating throughout the world that many people have literally abandoned the idea that God makes real people anymore. In every arena, there is an absence of quality leaders today. There is an absence of leadership in the political arena, the civic arena, economic and social and spiritual arenas are empty of quality leadership. Recent events indicate that previous generations have produced a poor quality of leaders that failed in the comparison of the leaders of the past. The recent disgrace and the fall of many of our own renowned Christian leaders exposed the corruption and the unethical activities among our leaders, even in the church. Divorces taking place in the clergy. People falling apart under the pressure of responsibility, can't handle the cost of commitment. People walking away from things they began because the times got tough and they couldn't finish it. Where are the leaders? We have leadership vacuums in government. This is proven by the unethical activities even in the political arenas and the covert conspiracies of governments betraying their own people. This is evidence that this lack of quality leadership is affecting every sphere of our lives. It is in this environment that this summit is called, where we have such a great lack of leadership in our homes, in our communities. We lack so much leadership that even gangs are now becoming the families of our children. Drug dealers are becoming the role models of our young people. We've got artists and musicians and songwriters and singers who have no morals at all becoming the examples for our children to follow. I've discovered that good leaders are very rare because most of us don't know what leaders look like. But I believe in this conference this week and in the homes watching this program, God is going to give birth to a leadership spirit that you have never dreamt was possible. I am here to speak on a topic tonight that will lead us to an awesome exploration of your